All right, here we go. Let's get this party started. Well, welcome to the Self-Made You Relationships Masterclass. This is the significant other edition. I encourage you to use the chat. This is going to be the place where you can ask questions. You can write whatever's coming to mind. There is going to be a workbook. Hopefully you all have this workbook. If you don't, Rhonda's going to put the link right now into the chat so you can quickly print it off. If you don't have a printer, just grab a pen and paper. But feel free to use the chat too. You can kind of capture some of your thoughts and again, ask some questions right there. We will take a little bit of time in the middle and at the end to address what it is that you're adding to the chat. Why am I even bringing you this right now? This lesson in particular on significant others, because I do not want one more minute to go by before you know how to create the love, satisfaction, and joy from the relationship that you have with your significant other. And as a side note, this isn't just for people with a partner. It is for anyone who wants to improve, heal, or grow a relationship with someone who plays a significant role in your life. Okay, so I want to make that clear. This is for anyone who has that person of significance in their life that they feel like the relationship has room for improvement. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a bit of bad news. Every minute of every day, we are actively being sabotaged by our mind. Without awareness, without any sort of understanding, we are sabotaging our relationships. And that feels exhausting and terrifying. But here's the good news. With a little bit of awareness and education, I can teach you how to use a simple system to eliminate the unnecessary suffering and sabotage, not just in the arena of your relationships, but you can actually use it in every area of your life. I used this system that I'm about to teach you to solve problems like overeating, over drinking, transitioning out of like the 9-to-5 grind, and creating a business from scratch. So once I learned how to use myself as the solution to my problems, I started to go after things that I never thought possible. The tool I used as my safety net to overcome problems like drinking too much alcohol actually became my key to unlocking the universe and achieving things like this business that has gone on to impact so many lives. I'm going to teach you my system for healing and growing and improving relationships so that you have a safety net and you have a key to unlocking the universe, solving every problem, and achieving every goal. And you might be thinking, well, if this is so simple, then why haven't I done it before now? Why do I have this relationship with a significant other that feels like it's unraveling? Well, the simple answer is because you just haven't yet been taught. So today we are making a commitment before we go any further that you're willing to be uncomfortable, because this can be scary, that you're going to be willing to make some decisions, and that you're willing to face fear and ask yourself questions that maybe you've never asked yourself before. So my name is Tracy Plushcourt. I am the founder of Self-Made You. Quite simply, my goal is to make Self-Made You a household name by equipping people with one skill that will change every single outcome in their life. And that skill is learning to rely on yourself as the solution. So here's the real problem. the problems that you have that you think are causing the pain in your life, like lack of communication with your partner, maybe experiencing betrayal, maybe constantly fighting or waking up every morning and entering into an argument, maybe the unequal balance of chores around the house, maybe the lack of support, this feeling of being unsupported, especially during the more important life events, the circumstance of having different goals and different values, or the feeling of being unappreciated. Maybe it's lack of physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, or both. Maybe it's that your significant other isn't around very often. I know that you think that those circumstances are the problem. But the root cause of all of our problems is that we've never been taught how to think about those circumstances with intention. You've never been taught how to think about the inequality of chores around the house. You've never been taught how to think about the fact that your significant other isn't available to you when you want them to be. And when you learn how to think about those circumstances, you gain control. You get to choose how you want to feel about that circumstance at that moment. That might have you feeling very out of control. Our formal education system doesn't have a standard or a curriculum on how to use your mind to solve problems and achieve goals. And without that education, we operate on default and we just react from the pain instead of responding with control. Is it possible that our formal education system is ultimately responsible for our inability to thrive mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, socially? And that the formal education system is what created a lack of self-control. It's worth questioning. It's worth considering so that you no longer operate from a belief that you're just broken. It might just be that you were never taught. So I want you to turn to the first page of your workbook, because we are going to make some decisions. What problem do you want to solve when it comes to the relationship with your significant other? What goal do you want to achieve with what it is that you're about to learn? So let me just give you some reasons why it's really important to decide. So many of us sit around and feel so much pain around the circumstance of a relationship, but we never take the time to decide what it is that we actually want. It's so easy to do what we've always done, to think what we've always thought, and to feel what we've always felt about that significant other, that we've never taken the time to actually decide what it is that we want. This is super important because it creates awareness. How do you know you have a problem if you don't decide what it is that you want? If I want to stop yelling at my kids every night, but I don't decide what my goal is because I'm afraid of failing, then I just fail ahead of time. But when you have a goal or an objective, your brain goes to work finding the ways to stop that knee-jerk reaction of yelling and getting angry instead of spinning out in fear and frustration. It's like having the GPS in your car. You've got to enter in where it is that you want to go in order for it to accurately give you the steps to get there. So making a decision about what problems you're solving and what goals you're achieving is the antidote to fear and frustration. So we're going to take a few minutes right now, and I want you to jot down on this worksheet. If you don't have the worksheet, just grab a pen and paper. But I want to know what problem you want to solve. Decide what goal you want to achieve with your significant other. And to make it a little bit easier for you, I've broken it down into these 3 categories. This will make it a little bit easier for you to think about. So, what experience is it that you're having that you want to change or that you want to create? What result is it that you ultimately want? You can go either way. So many people say, I don't know what it is that I actually want. How do I know what I want? A lot of people tell me, I'm so far gone, I can't be helped because I don't even know what I want. And you guys, that's not true. And the best way to figure out what it is that you want is to think about what it is that you don't want. We've all had experiences, we've all had results that we'd rather not have had. That's a really great way to figuring out what it is that you do want. So you can either talk about the problems that you want to solve, or you can talk about what kind of results it is that you want to create. So in the context of this relationship with your significant other, I want you to jot down what it is that you want. Decide. And if that's not available to you, decide what it is that you don't want. And then I want you to think about what kind of feelings do you want to create? Or what kind of feelings do you want to not experience anymore? What problems are you looking to solve? A lot of people will explain to me their problems in feelings. They'll say, I feel unheard. I feel unvalued. I feel like I'm not important. And then lastly, what kind of thoughts do you want to be having, or do you want to let go of? Or beliefs. These might be very deeply rooted thoughts that are thought every single day over and over and over. And they might be so ingrained that it's a belief that you're operating from. Or maybe it's a memory. I want you to decide right now, just take a few minutes, what problems, and if you want to put it in the chat, feel free, but what problems do you want to solve? Or what is it that you want to create for yourself? Is it the ability to express your feelings, your needs, your concerns? Is it a problem of not being able to trust? Maybe it's stemming from past betrayals, the memories of past betrayals. Maybe you suspect infidelity. Maybe you have these regular or unresolved conflicts and arguments that escalate and cause a lot of stress. Maybe you have disagreements related to money, budgeting. Maybe you're unable to make financial decisions together. Maybe your values and goals kind of clash. Maybe your priorities are not aligned, and that leads to a lot of tension. Is there jealousy or insecurity about your partners or your significant others' interactions with other people? Or there's past experiences, there's memories about that. Are you feeling disconnected due to really busy schedules that have you feeling like you're just two ships passing in the night? And you're not spending enough meaningful time together. Are there issues or problems arising around disagreements with each other's families or the in-laws? Are you feeling unsupported or emotionally neglected? Just take a few minutes and fill out that worksheet. This is how you decide what it is that you want to change. All right, so the next sheet is discover. This line of questioning is going to prompt you to better understand and heighten your awareness around why you haven't yet gotten what you want, why you might feel stuck in this relationship or at the point of where you're at in the relationship. So it's really important to start to discover, why do I want to solve these problems? I want you to ask that question. Again, we often don't decide what it is that we want. And if we do, we don't go on to ask ourselves, why do we even want that? Why do you want to create this deep desire that you have? The reason why you haven't probably asked yourself why you want it is because you don't believe it's available to you. And that's really scary. But discomfort is not to be feared. Discomfort is a vibration that runs through your body. That's all it is. It's a feeling, it's an emotion. We don't have to be afraid of it. It's meant to be felt. We often don't like to think of the worst case scenario because it's so scary. We think we're going to fall down some deep, dark hole. We think, what if this is over? I wouldn't be able to go on. You hear that all the time. I can't live without him. That's a thought. And nobody wants to really go there and think through that scenario to actually recognize that you would be able to navigate through that. But they don't give themselves the time to even think through that because it's too scary. We focus on the feelings we think we would get at the finish line, which actually robs us of the journey. We think, oh, it would be so wonderful if my husband actually kept the commitment for a weekly date night. That would feel so good. And then we kind of lose sight of how we can actually feel good right now. We like suspend feeling good right now because we think that it's only available to us once this circumstance happens, once those dates actually hit the calendar, or I actually go on that date. That robs you from feeling what it is right now. So answer the question, why do I want to solve these problems? Or why do I want to achieve this goal, this desire? Why is this my objective? Am I willing to be uncomfortable? Recognize that being uncomfortable in whatever iteration, whether it's overwhelmed or frustrated or confused, those are just feelings. They're not going to kill you. You have so much more power and ability than you ever recognized, especially when it comes to feeling feelings. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? What is that worst case scenario that I haven't been willing to look at? Write it out in detail. I want you to face that. It's one of the most powerful techniques that you can pull out at any moment under any circumstance. When you find yourself afraid or overwhelmed, frustrated, confused, ask yourself, what is it that I'm afraid of? Look at that, stare it in the face. And then I want you to ask yourself, how am I responsible for the experience I'm having? If you find yourself sitting on the couch alone every night while your significant other is busy doing other things, how are you responsible? In what ways can you take just a little bit of the responsibility? Just notice. It's going to start to open you up a little bit. When you stop putting 100% of the blame on an outside circumstance, whether that's a person, whether that's an event, whether that's a dollar amount in a bank account, and you take on some of that responsibility, even if it's just 10%, now you have some control. That control now lies within you. So I just want you to crack the door open and challenge yourself to find, even if it's in the littlest, tiniest bit, how you might be responsible for the experience that you're having, just a little bit. I want you to write that out. I'll give you a couple seconds. And then when you're ready, turn the page. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a science class, Your Brain 101. Because now we've created an awareness of what it is that you want, where you're at right now in relationship to where you want to be. And now I want to start to teach you why you're not there yet. And like I said earlier, it's because you haven't been taught. So I'm going to make sense of this for you. I want to teach you the neuroscience, which I know sounds scary, and it's not. The science of your brain. And I want to emphasize again, you haven't heard me say this yet. You are not broken. You are very normal. You just haven't learned how to operate that mind of yours to actually get what it is that you want. We are taught what to think, and we are tested on our ability to memorize data and information. We aren't taught how to recognize our thoughts that are sabotaging us. Why are they sabotaging us? Because they're being created from the primitive part of our brain. And instead of noticing those thoughts and questioning the validity of them, we react in an unintentional, autopilot, subconscious way. And it happens in the blink of an eye. Our primitive brain wants to avoid pain. It wants to seek pleasure. It wants to expend as little energy as possible. And we operate from that part of our brain on default almost all day long. Out of the 60,000 thoughts on average that we have a day, 80% or more of them are coming from our primitive brain, which creates moments experiences days, weeks, years, lifetimes of unwanted pain. And because our brain wants to be efficient, 90% of the thoughts we had yesterday are repeated today. So that's a pretty compelling argument for why we would want to learn how to operate from the other part of our brain. So we've got the primitive part, and as you can see here, we've also got the prodigy part. It's technically called the prefrontal cortex, and it's the intentional side of our brain. It does not run on default. You have to command this side to activate. You have to intentionally operate from this part of your brain. So we can, when we're operating from that part of our brain, we can have a heightened sense of awareness around when that default thinking is happening so that we can think differently. But we can't fight the enemy of those saboteur narratives without shining a light on it first. We have to know who it is that we're fighting, right? So if you haven't already, I highly recommend that you take the saboteur assessment. This really shines a light on which saboteur narratives you most often listen to. These saboteur narratives are actually birthed from your strengths. So they're very unique to you. But it's really good to know which saboteur narratives you are most often listening to so that you can be on the lookout for them. So it becomes way easier for you to notice when they're showing up. So just look at that diagram of your brain, 101. Know that you have two parts. Know that it's not your fault that you have these knee-jerk reactions. It's happening without awareness. It's unintended, but that doesn't have to be the case. We can actually train our prodigy part of our brain to become stronger so that we actually start to downregulate, and that becomes the default. That's what so many of my clients are in the process of doing. They are becoming somebody who manages their mind, who gets the results they want with intention. It's a beautiful thing. So now you know what is happening, why it's happening. You know what you want and why you want it. Let's talk about how to get it, okay? So, like I said before, I start by thinking of myself as the solution, and I utilize a framework. It's called the self-operating system. It creates often a sense of self-control, but this is an operating system that once learned and applied, it becomes your exclusive, unparalleled source of guidance. And with practice, and as you start to master it, it feels like it's part of your DNA. You will start to see how you operate most often with intention. You notice quickly when those unwanted feelings show up, because they will. Those are never going to go away. But the more you use this way, this framework to operate from, the quicker you start to intercept when those feelings show up. So the framework is SELF. That's all you have to remember. So you're going to start to use yourself as the solution to solving all of your problems. Intentionally applying this way of operating strengthens your mental fitness, creating a profound connection where you start to feel understood and cherished. You accept your partner as their true self, and you create a relationship that fosters growth and encourages personal development. You start to experience empathy, understanding, acceptance, growth, passion. You start to have shared experiences. All of that becomes available to you and easier to achieve utilizing this framework. So the 4 components of the self-operating system, it's self-coaching, eliminating obstacles, leveraging strengths, and forging intentional results. This operating system has unlimited applications. That means you can apply this to absolutely everything, the most mundane circumstances to the most extreme circumstances. At any time, on any day, in any place. And if you turn your page, lasting positive change requires 20% insight and 80% application. So you now know the how, the what, the why, but you've got to be able to practice this, because lasting change comes from 80% application. Practice. Practice is what's going to strengthen your mental fitness. So let's apply it, okay? So I want you to look back to your first worksheet, where you were deciding what problem you want to solve or what goal you want to achieve. Okay? Just look back at that, remind yourself. And I'm going to just walk you through these 4 steps so you see how easy they are. Now, as a side note, there are techniques within each of these steps, and this is what Self-Made You does. So we give you the insight. We'll give anybody who will listen the insight for free. But where we shine is that we come alongside of you for this journey where you do the application part. We teach you different techniques to applying this system to any problem, unlimited circumstances. So we teach you the insight, we educate you on what you've never been taught. And then we come alongside of you for however long you want, and we coach you on the techniques. So step 1, self-coaching. In my sneaky little way, we did it. We've already checked the box on that. What is self-coaching? It's the act of asking yourself questions. Sometimes they can be very profound questions, and sometimes they're not so poetic, right? Like, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling that way? What is it that I really want? Why do I want that? Am I willing to be uncomfortable to get it? What's the worst case scenario that I'm really afraid of? How am I responsible? In what ways might I be responsible? So some of the techniques that we teach our clients are thought downloads. Doing that every single day, asking yourself those questions and writing out the answers. Sometimes it could be like, what am I thinking? Total brain dump. What am I feeling? Total brain dump. Just give yourself the gift of 10 minutes to write out what's in this head of yours. Give yourself some separation. It gives you an opportunity to be objective. We also teach our clients a tool called the mind map. And they start to recognize how the results that they're creating is just math. That the thoughts that they are unintentionally thinking create a feeling that have them behaving in such a way, creating their own experiences. And we show it to them in black and white. And then we use that exact same formula and we kind of reverse architect to get what it is that they most want. It's a phenomenal technique that my clients become very proficient at. We also teach them the technique of asking themselves questions. So I've given you some of the best questions to start with. So pages 1 and 2, that's how you start your self-coaching sessions. Okay, so step 2, eliminating the self-sabotage. It's an obstacle for all of us. I mentioned the saboteur assessment. It's a great technique to understand what saboteur narratives you're most often listening to. So you can be on the lookout for them so that you can start to see them for what they are. They are BS lies. But your primitive brain believes it as if it's the truth. I know when I have thoughts running through my head, I don't question them. I'm like, oh yeah, it must be true if I'm thinking it. Right? He doesn't love me anymore because he's never home. Truth. Right? Like you have to see it so that you can question it. And if I know that the victim saboteur narrative or the judge saboteur narrative is most present in my life, I can be on the lookout for it. Another great technique. Once you have your awareness of what it is that you're thinking, what it is that you're feeling, how those feelings are driving your behaviors and creating your results, I want you to intentionally breathe. I love reminding myself through a breathing pattern. It's just a mindfulness technique. There's hundreds of thousands of them out there, but one that works really well for me is to take a really deep breath in and remind myself I'm human and I'm having a human experience. And then I take another deep breath in and I remind myself that this feeling that I'm having is meant to be felt. Nothing has gone wrong. I'm supposed to feel this feeling. And I take one more deep breath in. And I tell myself that when I'm ready to feel something differently, I have a choice. And I can shift. It's completely 100% within my control. But it starts with reminding myself of how human I am. Nothing has gone wrong. This is me having a human experience, feeling a feeling that's not going to kill me. I'm actually meant to be feeling this. It's going to provide contrast in the future. When I'm ready, I can choose to feel something differently. It's a great technique, intentional breathing. And there's many other techniques we teach, but that one works really well for me. And then step 3, leveraging your strengths. Now, these strengths come from your prodigy brain. And there's 5 of them that are available to you. Once you have done that intentional breathing, once you're aware of the saboteur narrative that you're mistakenly listening to and believing, now you've cracked the door open to this prodigy brain because you have a feeling of awareness. That feeling tells you you're no longer in your primitive brain feeling unwanted feelings. You might be feeling curious. You might be feeling aware. You might be feeling neutral. You might even be just feeling indifferent, but it's not this unwanted, victimized feeling. So we know we've cracked the door We're standing in the doorway of our prodigy brain. This is where you start to leverage with intention feelings and strengths that are inherently within you. You do not have to do anything, go anywhere, grab resources, buy resources that are outside of you. It's all within you. Those strengths look like empathy, discovery, innovation, navigation, and activation. We teach our clients how to tap into those. Just recognizing that you are a human being, having this human experience, operating without intention from your primitive brain that has you feeling like a victim. All of that is a thought. It's a belief that you can practice, that you can take from this workshop today, practice it like it's your job. And now you are well on your way from operating from your prodigy brain. We teach our clients now how to use the mind map and literally create the game plan for themselves on any particular circumstance. And then step 4 is where a lot of programs start. And as you can see, we end with step 4. It's forging intentional results. We help our clients find the best practices. So when we're trying to solve a problem that looks like, healing the relationship with your significant other, of course, there's best practices like understanding boundaries, improving communication, right? Managing expectations. There are best practices that we teach, but that's not where we start. We make sure that your mind is in the right place so that those actions feel organic. They don't feel forced. You're not taking action from a place of desperation. You're taking action from a place of awareness and enlightenment, curiosity, excitement. So it's so important that step 4 happens at step 4. So many other programs will start there and give you a checklist and say, here you go, there's your best practices, now go on your way. And they do that because they know it's not sustainable. If you aren't in the mindset and taking those actions and it feels actually organic and easy, you'll be back. You'll be back because as you've already learned, your primitive brain is strong. It operates, it wants to be efficient. It goes right back to those well-driven neural pathways, the beliefs that you've been operating for so long from. So we strengthen the prodigy part of your brain so you stay there. You forge intentional results from that place. Mental fitness and best practices are at the forefront, but they don't happen until step 4. So we encourage you to have a mental fitness routine that looks like step 1, step 2, step 3, multiple times a day. That's how you master this process of using yourself as the solution. This is how you stop thinking of yourself as the problem. So you have taken the most important step. You've shown up for this masterclass. If you want more information, the next step would be to go to our website, check out ways that we can continue to support you. We have free resources. We have paid resources. You can check us out. We have 2 different podcasts. We have these master classes that happen on the monthly. We have weekly little lessons, mini lessons that we invite you to for free. So we hope that if you have any questions, you will not hesitate to reach out. We also offer free consults for people who are wondering if this is the right fit for them. So I want to thank you for being here. Is there anything in the chat, Rhonda, that I need to address?
Nope, there's no questions in the chat.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to just, again, take the time. Thank you for being here. I applaud your courage to look at what it is that you have decided to solve and your willingness to be uncomfortable. Today marks the spot where everything turns around for you. So we'll talk to you soon.